When you're addicted to video games, reality often feels like background noise, dull, predictable, and far less exciting than the virtual chaos and rewards of the digital world. I was 20, a self-proclaimed gaming junkie who spent most of my waking hours lost in multiplayer battlegrounds, speedruns, and indie horror titles. My social life was practically non-existent, and honestly, I was fine with that. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened the night I decided to explore something different. My laptop had finally given out after years of overheating and abuse. Desperate for a gaming fix, I crept into my older brother Azim's room after midnight. He was working abroad for a few months and left behind his high-end setup. His machine was a beast: triple monitor display, mechanical keyboard, and a monstrous GPU I'd never be able to afford. I knew I shouldn't be using it, but temptation got the best of me. Just a couple of hours, I told myself. I booted it up, logged in with the password he used for everything, our mom's birthday, and dove straight into my usual gaming sites. But after an hour, I grew bored. I had played everything in my library to exhaustion, scrolling aimlessly through forums and game mod threads. I noticed a strange banner ad pop up on one of the darker forums I occasionally browsed. It read, "Death Games, the experience you'll never forget." The text was in a dripping red font, animated to resemble fresh blood. It stood out like a wound on the screen. Normally, I'd ignore this kind of thing, clearly a scam or some overhyped ARG. But the ad wasn't linked to any known ad service, and when I hovered over it, the cursor turned into a skull. A part of me was intrigued. I clicked. The browser went black for about 10 seconds. No loading icon, no redirect. Then a message appeared in white blocky letters on the screen. Warning, explicit content ahead. Do you wish to continue? I chuckled nervously. Classic horror game opener. I hit yes. The screen turned red. A low static hum began playing through the speakers. Then the text changed again. Want to watch someone die? Hit submit. It was absurd, ridiculous even. Obviously, some kind of twisted horror prank. I figured it might be an elaborate indie game designed to scare thrill seekers. That kind of thing excited me. I hit submit. The screen shifted suddenly to what looked like a cartoonish, animated sequence. The style was crude, like a poorly drawn children's show from the 90s. But the content was anything but. In the middle of the screen was a woman tied to a chair in a filthy, dimly lit basement. Two men in mismatched bandit masks stood on either side of her. One held a camera, the other held a long, jagged knife. The man with the camera turned to face the screen and grinned. "Welcome, Player One," he said in a glitchy, mechanical voice. Should she die? Two buttons appeared. Yes or no. My heart started beating faster. I knew it was fake. It had to be. Still, I hovered for a moment. Part of me hesitated, but another part, curious and detached, clicked yes. The scene shifted. The second masked man stepped off screen and returned wearing a bloodied butcher's apron. He carried a hacksaw. Without hesitation, he began cutting into the woman's arm. Her screams pierced through my headphones, not cartoonish anymore, but raw, visceral, real. The sound of metal grinding bone made me gag. I tried to exit the window. It wouldn't close. The next scene loaded. Two scuba divers in murky water dragging a struggling man in a business suit into the depths. One of them tied cinder blocks to his ankles. The other jabbed a knife into his stomach as bubbles erupted around him. An alligator emerged from the shadows and tore him apart. Again, the audio was sickeningly authentic. I yanked the headphones off, but the sounds continued through the speakers now. I reached for the power button, but just then, the display changed to something horrifyingly different. It was a live feed. 3 men, real, not animated, stood in what looked like a cement room with peeling grey walls and fluorescent lighting. One of them held a bloodied meat hook. The camera panned to a mutilated body on the floor, arms missing, face barely recognizable, and blood pooling underneath. Then the man closest to the camera leaned in. "You enjoyed that, didn't you?" he whispered, his breath fogging up the lens. The screen glitched. Then 3 new options appeared. Join, leave, meet us. I stared in stunned silence. I tried clicking leave again and again and again. Nothing happened. A voice began speaking from my speakers. Not synthesized this time, but calm, deliberate, and terrifyingly human. "Don't ruin our fun now. You chose to play. You watched. You clicked yes." The webcam light on my brother's laptop flicked on. I hadn't touched it. I scrambled to shut the laptop, my palms sweating, heart hammering like a jackhammer in my chest. The moment the screen went dark, the voice stopped. I sat there. I turned on my brother's laptop the next day, expecting to find the site in the history or maybe bookmarked. But everything was wiped. His browser had no record of my session. Even system logs didn't show it had been accessed at that time. Confused and disturbed, I searched for the keywords again. Death games. Nothing. Every forum that had anything remotely similar had either been taken down or returned with dead links. I even tried reaching out to people on Reddit. No one knew what I was talking about. When Azim returned a few weeks later, I casually mentioned something about weird gaming forums and whether his setup had any special VPNs or access tools. He stared at me, dead serious. "Did you go into the darknet browser?" he asked. I blinked. "What?" He walked over to the laptop and showed me a hidden shortcut, something I'd completely missed. It opened a heavily encrypted browser designed specifically for Tor access. Apparently, he used it to research cybersecurity loopholes for a freelance gig. When I told him about the site, about the live feed and the options, his face turned pale. "You got into something you weren't supposed to." He immediately reformatted the laptop, wiped all drives, and disabled the hidden router configuration he'd installed. He also made me swear never to touch anything labeled .onion or access the deep web again. He wouldn't tell me more, only that certain parts of the dark web weren't just criminal. They were evil. Even now, months later, I still hear those screams in my dreams. Sometimes, I wake up drenched in sweat, convinced someone's watching me from the corner of my room. I can't look at webcams anymore without taping them over. And I haven't touched another horror game since. Because part of me wonders, Was it just a twisted show? Or did I actually contribute to someone's death? Maybe that site wasn't showing actors. Maybe those death games weren't fake. And what haunts me most, they knew I watched, and they wanted me to join. The forbidden frontier. Some doors on the internet should never be opened. Back in high school, my friends and I were obsessed with internet mysteries. You know, the kind that led to lost websites, secret forums, and rabbit holes filled with creepy lore. Every day after school, we would huddle around one of our laptops, browsing weird threads about haunted games, cursed videos, and unexplained digital phenomena. But nothing fascinated us more than the dark web. It felt like the ultimate forbidden zone, a hidden realm beneath the surface of the internet, untouchable, mysterious, and dangerous. We'd read horror stories about it online, black market organ sales, snuff videos, and hitmen for hire. Most of it sounded like urban legends. But to us, it was irresistible. It was the internet's final boss, and we were determined to beat it. We were just kids, broke and bored. We didn't have money for burner laptops or encrypted rigs. So I took the plunge using my own home PC. Big mistake. After downloading a special browser that allowed access to onion sites, I stumbled onto a shady forum listing dark web links. Most of them were dead ends, blank pages, 404 errors, or nonsensical code. But then I found one that worked. It was a marketplace, but not just any marketplace. This site offered everything: counterfeit documents, hacked Netflix accounts, illegal animal trade, and something I still can't explain. Bottles of urine, neatly labeled and graded like fine wine. I laughed, disturbed but fascinated. I took screenshots and sent them to my friends. We were hooked. It became our twisted version of an after-school activity, diving into the deepest corners of the web, searching for the next unsettling discovery. Then we found it. A forum buried deep in a cluster of anonymous boards. It was labeled Services for Hire, Discreet and Permanent. At first, we thought it was just more junk. But when we clicked inside, the tone changed. There were listings for actual hitmen. Plain text, no images. But the details were sickeningly specific. Prices ranged from $20,000 for standard removals to over $100,000 for high-profile packages. Some even had vague customer reviews. Short, cryptic messages like, "Got what I paid for, no loose ends." Fast, efficient, will use again. We couldn't believe what we were seeing. Was it real? A hoax? Just another RRG-style rabbit hole? Curiosity got the best of us. We created an account using fake names just to see how far we could go. That's when things got strange. After logging in one evening, I noticed something odd in the corner of my screen. A tiny blue eyeball icon. It was subtle, almost easy to miss. At first, I thought it was part of the site's design, but then it stayed there. Even after I left the site, even after I closed the browser, even after I restarted the computer, no matter what I did, that icon followed me like a shadow. I ran every antivirus and malware scan I could think of. Nothing came up. It wasn't I didn't tell my friends. I didn't want to scare them or admit how badly I'd screwed up. Then, weeks later, everything changed. We were browsing a hacker marketplace, a deep level one we hadn't seen before, when suddenly the eyeball icon disappeared. I let out a breath of relief. Too soon. Immediately after, a new window opened on my screen. Plain black background, white text. No button to close it. No sound. Just a message. It read, "You kids are poking around in places you don't belong." That blue eyeball, it was a tracker. Someone was watching. "I just removed it for you." I froze in my seat. Then the next line appeared. "You live at 742 Echo Ridge Lane. You go to Hamilton High School. Your name is Josh. Your friends are..." And then he listed every one of them. First names, last names, our exact class schedule, our parents' names. I felt my blood turn cold. The message ended with one final warning. "I'm the good guy. The others watching you. They're not. Delete everything. Get out. This is your only warning." Then the screen went black. No trace of the message. No history. Nothing in the task manager. Just gone. I shut down the PC and stared at the dark screen for hours. The next morning, we met up and compared notes. I told them everything. One of my friends checked his browser history, and the blue eyeball had been on his screen too. We deleted everything, wiped hard drives, uninstalled the browser, smashed the backup USB. We never went back. No more dark web, no more exploring, no more curiosity. Because what we learned is this: the dark web isn't a playground. It's not a place to explore for fun. It's a predator's hunting ground. And if you stay long enough, someone will find you. The deadly order. Sometimes, one wrong click is all it takes. I wasn't a stranger to risky choices, but turning to the dark web was never part of the plan. Not until my usual dealer went silent. No calls, no texts. Vanished. I was desperate. That's when a friend, Mark, suggested I try something easier. He leaned in with a grin and said, "The dark web's got everything, man. Just fire up Tor and click your way into heaven." At first, I laughed it off. But late one night, bored and restless, I gave in. I downloaded the Tor browser and dove headfirst into a digital abyss. Within minutes, I found pages offering every substance imaginable. Pills, powders, liquids in unmarked vials. The payment? Just a few clicks. And a little Bitcoin. It was too easy. I placed a small order, nothing serious. When it arrived days later, neatly vacuum sealed, I realized how dangerously simple it all was. But my curiosity didn't stop at drugs. I wanted to see more. The real dark web. The stuff from the stories. One night, I was sober, bored again, and stumbled into a twisted corner of Reddit. A now deleted thread hinted at a true dark site for the bold. Assassination services. For when you really need someone gone. I rolled my eyes. Sounded like some edgy joke. Still, I clicked the link. And the site was real. It was called Deadmatch. Just a black screen, green pixelated text, and a crude skull logo with a bloody smile. The homepage listed categories like quick exit, gunshot, untraceable, disposal, fire, acid, deep sea, custom orders. You imagine it, we make it happen. There was even an order form. You had to fill in a name, address, payment in crypto, and pick a method. I stared at the screen for a long time. It was absurd, hilarious even. Who would actually use this? Half as a joke, half because I was too stoned to think straight, I started filling out the form. I didn't type in anyone's real name, just random gibberish. But I stopped short of submitting it. Eventually, I shut the laptop and forgot about it. A few days later, Mark came over. We smoked together, nothing heavy, just enough to dull the edge. But somewhere along the way, things went fuzzy. Too fuzzy. I blacked out. When I woke up the next morning, my head was pounding. My laptop was open, still on the coffee table. There was a new tab open and an email notification blinking in red. The subject line read, "Confirmation, your order has been received." I stared at it, heart racing. The message said, "Your request has been processed, agent assigned, ETA 24-48 hours, discretion guaranteed." I read it over and over again. I didn't remember placing anything, but there was my IP address, a timestamp from the night before. It matched exactly when I blacked out. I had ordered a hitman on myself. That night, everything spiraled into madness. At around 2 a.m., I noticed a dark sedan parked across the street. Windows tinted, engine off. No one stepped out. It didn't move for an hour. High and paranoid, I grabbed a kitchen knife and stepped outside. My heart was pounding in my throat. The air was heavy, the street dead silent. I approached the car slowly. Empty, but the engine was warm. Before I could turn around, the street lights flickered. Then, total blackout. My entire block lost power. 15 seconds later, everything returned to normal. The car? Gone. Just gone. No headlights. No engine start. Nothing. It vanished into the night without a sound. Shaken, I rushed back inside, locked every door, and unplugged my modem. Then came the knock. 3 sharp taps. From the front door, then the back. When I finally gathered the courage to open the front, I found no one there. Just a black envelope taped to the door. Inside were photographs of me, taken from my webcam. I was in bed, eyes closed, time stamped at 3:07 a.m. the night before. Alongside the photos was a single note, scrawled in red ink. "Stay off the dark web. Next time, we won't warn you." That was it. The next morning, I destroyed everything, formatted the hard drive, wiped every device, changed networks, and threw the laptop into a dumpster across town. I never spoke about it again. Mark swore he didn't touch anything that night, but his face told me otherwise. He looked just as shaken as I was. Since then, I've never opened Tor, never visited an onion link, never so much as typed dark web into a search bar, because I learned the hard way. The dark web isn't just full of illegal trades and creepy fantasies. It's a predator's domain. And once you enter, they know you. They watch you. And if you go too far, they come for you. Some dark thoughts are better left unacted upon. I was 14 when I learned what it truly meant to be powerless. Skinny, soft-spoken, glasses too big for my face, and gay. something I hadn't even fully admitted to myself, but the other kids seemed to pick up on fast. They used it as a weapon. Every day was the same ritual of humiliation. Slurs in the hallway, my books knocked to the floor, shoves in the locker room. But the worst came during gym class. I'll never forget it. We were playing soccer. I made a mistake, kicked the ball the wrong way, and everyone laughed. One of the seniors, Tyler, took the ball, wound up, and smashed it straight into my face. My glasses shattered. My nose bled. Everyone laughed harder. Even the teacher did nothing, just told me to shake it off. I remember looking up from the floor, blood on my shirt, vision blurry, and something inside me cracked. That night, I sat alone in my room, nursing my face, scrolling through social media. Perfect lives, happy kids, beautiful people. None of it felt real to me anymore. Then I fell into the rabbit hole. It started with a curiosity, a Google search, how to get revenge without getting caught. Most of it was jokes, petty stuff. But one comment stood out. If you're serious, there are places on the dark web that handle problems. I'd heard of the dark web, but only as some mythical space where hackers lived. Still, I dug deeper. Within an hour, I had Tor installed and was scrolling through forums filled with cryptic links and disturbing topics. One thread led to a site titled Hitmen for Hire, Problems Removed Quietly. It was surreal. Just a black page, a red skull logo, and a form. It said, enter names, locations, and details. Payment via Bitcoin, confidential, permanent. I didn't believe it was real. I mean, it couldn't be. I thought maybe it was a role-playing site or a scare tactic. But I was angry, broken, so I typed 3 names, Tyler, Jordan, Ms. Richards, the teacher who had ignored my pain for months. When it asked if I had 25,000 in Bitcoin, I clicked no. A message popped up. If you can't pay, we'll take it from you. Confirm? I hesitated, but my anger got the better of me. I entered my name, my school, my address. Hit submit. Then the screen went black. Just one line of text appeared. Contract received. Pay for work. And then, nothing. Weeks passed. I tried to forget about it, tried to convince myself it had all been a sick prank. I even started to feel guilty. What if it was real? Then Tyler stopped showing up to school. Then Jordan. Rumors spread that they'd both disappeared, one from a party, the other on his way home. But nothing prepared me for what happened next. In the middle of third period, Miss Richards stood at the whiteboard and collapsed. Just crumpled to the floor. Dead. A heart attack, they said. But she was only 37. Healthy. No medical history. I knew. Somehow, I knew. That night, I ran home with a knot in my stomach. And that's when I noticed the black sedan following me. Slow, silent. I cut through backyards, jumped fences, but no matter how I moved, it stayed close. I made it to my front porch, only to be met by a man. Tall, gaunt, scarred face, dressed in all black, eyes like glass, emotionless. He stepped forward and whispered, "You ordered a job, now pay." I turned to run, but he grabbed me. The last thing I remember was a needle in my neck, I woke up 2 weeks later in a hospital bed, surrounded by strangers, tubes in my arms, pain in my side, and my left hand gone. The doctor told me I'd been found unconscious in an abandoned warehouse, organs partially harvested, hand surgically removed. My kidney had been sold on the dark web, and my hand gone for identification, sold to traffickers. I was lucky, they said. An anonymous call had tipped them off in time to save me. But lucky didn't feel like the right word. To this day, I don't know who called. Was it a guilty hacker, a mistake in the system, or maybe just someone worse, keeping me alive for later? I never returned to the dark web, never searched for revenge again, because I learned the hard way. When you ask the darkness for a favor, it always takes something back. The cursed chat room. Some messages should never be read. In '98, I was 15 years old. The internet was still new, raw, and buzzing with mystery. Back then, we didn't have social media, streaming, or apps. We had dial-up screeching through phone lines, AOL trial CDs, piling up like trash, and primitive websites that looked like they were built with crayons. But most of all, we had chat rooms. That was how I connected with my best friend Jake outside of school. We both had home computers, painfully slow, but good enough to access IRC, Internet Relay Chat. It was the wild west of the internet, filled with secret communities and endless rabbit holes. One day, Jake messaged me during one of our late-night research sessions. We were supposed to be working on a history project, but instead, he sent me something that would change everything. Check this out. Secret Oregon-based chat. Not on any servers I've seen before. The link he gave me led to a strange, bare-bones IRC channel. No graphics, no login wall, just a black terminal-like screen with flashing text and a user list on the right. The room was named Echo Dust. It sounded cool, cryptic even. We joined using fake nicknames. Jake was Jax98. I chose No Name, classic teenager edginess. At first, it felt like our own secret clubhouse. Aside from us, the room only had a few regulars, odd handles like OR Watcher, Clock Hands, and Merryfall. Most of them seemed local to Oregon, though they rarely chatted. Some just lurked, occasionally posting cryptic one-liners or short conversations that never made much sense. But we loved it. We'd stay up late, whispering over the phone while chatting with strangers in this hidden online corner. Then one night, I was promoted to admin. I never asked for it. There was no notification. Just a blinking green icon next to my name the next time I logged in. Jake thought it was hilarious. Dude, they trust you with the keys to the castle now. We started using the admin controls to mess around, deleting our own messages, changing fonts, pretending to ban each other. We never abused it, just had fun with it. Harmless, stupid fun. Until she joined. Her username was Sarah6754. She appeared late one Saturday night. I remember it clearly. because I had just logged in, expecting the usual silence. But her message stood out. I found this chat on my dad's computer. I think he's watching. That got my attention immediately. The room had always been our private playground. The regulars rarely said anything personal. This was new. I messaged her back. Who's your dad? Why would he be watching this chat room? She responded almost instantly. He's angry all the time. He hurts me. I saw this chat on his PC. Your names are in his notebook. At first, I thought it was a joke. Maybe someone role-playing for attention. But her next message chilled me. I see Jake's name, Jax98, and no name. He knows you. I sat frozen. That wasn't public info. We had never mentioned our real names in the chat. I messaged Jake in a panic. Dude, check the chat now. Something's wrong. As soon as he joined, the chat room crashed. Not just a disconnection. The entire window glitched out, flashing red for a second before vanishing completely. I couldn't reconnect. The server was gone. Jake called me immediately, his voice shaky. What the hell was that? Who was that girl? We tried for days to get back in. The link was dead. The room no longer existed. Even Google, back then just starting to take off, had no trace of #echo dust. It was like it had never been before. Then, the news broke. A 16-year-old girl named Sarah was found murdered in a town just outside Portland. Her father was the prime suspect, vanished without a trace. The story got local attention, but never hit the national news cycle. I felt sick. Jake and I stayed silent. We didn't tell our parents. We didn't tell anyone. But the worst part wasn't the murder. It was what came next. About a week after Sarah's story hit the news, I received a manila envelope in the mail. No stamp, no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper, typed, plain, no greeting, no signature. Just this. He's still out there, and he remembers. Attached with a paperclip were printed screenshots from the chat room, lines of text, my name, Jake's name, even the joke bans we did with admin access. And worst of all, a handwritten list scanned from a lined notebook. On it, Jax98, local trace, Hillsboro, Oregon. No name, 15, lives with parents, glasses, often online late. Jake, separate target, easier to isolate. Other users pending confirmation. Room logs saved. It wasn't just surveillance, it was a hunting list. Jake freaked out. He stopped going online completely. His parents thought he was going through a phase. I started unplugging my computer every night, covered my webcam with electrical tape, double-checked every door and window before bed. We didn't go near IRC again. We didn't need to. That silence, that absence of contact, it was worse than anything because we knew someone was watching, waiting. Years passed. I eventually told my therapist in college. She thought I had exaggerated it, maybe even imagined it. Said it was common for trauma to blur memories. But I know what I saw. Jake moved out of state. changed his name online. We still talk, barely. We both live like people in witness protection. Sometimes I still dream about that chat room. Black screen, white text. Sarah typing over and over again. He's watching. He knows your name. You're on the list. I haven't seen another envelope. But sometimes I check the street outside at night, just in case. Because he's still out there, somewhere. And I still don't know if I was meant to be the next name crossed off that list. The air in my apartment was thick with the scent of stale pizza and the hum of my aging desktop. Years ago, a lifetime it felt like, I'd been on a quest for something specific. Not a rare artifact or a hidden treasure, but a substance that had inexplicably vanished from my local scene. It was a frustrating time. What was once readily available, at a decent price no less, had dried up. People were scrambling for alternatives, and I, a creature of convenience and habit, was among them. That's when the whispers started. Friends, the kind who navigate the less lit alleys of society, spoke of Tor and the Onion Network. They spoke of a place called Silk Road. For the uninitiated, imagine Tor as the Google Chrome of the dark web. It's the program you need to access those cryptic addresses that only exist in the shadows, far from the prying eyes of conventional search engines. And Silk Road? It was a marketplace, a digital bazaar where almost anything could be bought and sold using Bitcoin, relying on a robust reputation system to ensure you got what you paid for. Looking back, the whole experience feels surreal, a fleeting dream from a bygone era of the internet. It was, in its own strange way, one of the coolest things about the turn of the millennium. Tor, originally known as the Onion Router, earned its name from its ingenious design. It randomly changed your IP address with every click. One minute you were browse from Ohio, the next from Guatemala, then Oslo. It was designed to be untraceable, or so we believed. Of course, the system likely had its own ways of tracking, but that's a story for another time. The lure of the untraceable, the promise of the unavailable, was too strong to resist. I downloaded Tor, navigated the labyrinthine layers of the dark web, and found myself on Silk Road. The interface was surprisingly straightforward, almost mundane. It felt as familiar as Craigslist or any other online forum. Bold with a touch of naivete, I made my post. Hi, I'm looking for mushrooms. Please respond. It was basic, perhaps even a little silly, but I was desperate, and creativity wasn't my strong suit at 3 a.m. I hit publish and waited, a strange mix of anticipation and apprehension churning in my gut. The next morning, my post was gone. What the hell was I thinking? I muttered, a wave of self-recrimination washing over me. The dark web, I figured, wasn't for casual browse or amateur inquiries. I dismissed the whole affair, a foolish venture into a world I didn't understand. But a few days later, a glimmer of hope. Someone had responded. He had what I was looking for and asked me to send a private message. My heart pounded a rhythm against my ribs. This was it. I agreed, and we began to discuss the details. The conversation flowed easily, surprisingly so. This stranger, cloaked in the anonymity of the dark web, possessed a certain charm, a a smooth way with words that made me feel at ease. Suddenly, I found myself agreeing to send him almost $1,000. It was far more than I had intended to spend, a significant chunk of my limited funds. But for some reason, I liked this guy. Charming drug dealers, I suppose, have that effect. That, I convinced myself, was how I knew he was legit. My initial budget for the purchase was a meager $400. The remaining $600 would have to come from my rent and bills for the month. A dangerous gamble, but one I was willing to take. I converted the money to Bitcoin, a complex process that involved navigating through various online exchanges and digital wallets, and sent it to a random wallet address provided by the seller. At the time, it all felt incredibly futuristic and exciting, a thrilling dive into the cutting edge of illicit commerce. After my payment was confirmed, the guy agreed to send me 1 ounce of mushrooms per week for 5 consecutive weeks. The delay, he explained, was for security reasons and would also allow me to sell more over time. It all made perfect sense to me, but the delivery never came. 2 weeks bled into nothing. The guy's account, once a beacon of promised psychedelic delight, vanished from my contact list. That charm I had felt, that inexplicable trust, now felt like the chilling prelude to a con. He was a scammer, plain and simple, and I hadn't seen it through the digital veil. I felt like a complete idiot. There was nothing I could do. The real problem, the looming crisis, was that I had been planning to sell that first shipment to cover the rent money I had spent. In 2 weeks, rent would be due, and I was going to be short. The first of the month arrived, and I was up to my neck in debt, drowning in the consequences of my ill-fated dark web adventure. Think of was to leave a bad review for that guy on Silk Road. It was a long shot, a futile gesture against the vast anonymity of the dark web. But it was all I had. I poured my anger and frustration onto the digital page. I said he had ripped me off, that he probably ripped off a lot of people, and not to give him any money. "Don't do business with this guy," I wrote, the words seething with indignation. "He'll steal your money for sure." I was running at full speed, a furious, flailing attempt at justice, but to no avail. Suddenly, the world spun, a jarring impact to my back, a sickening crash to the ground. The last thing I remembered of him was a yellow-toothed smile, a scarred face, and the pungent, chemical smell of a rag being pressed over my mouth. I tried to scream, but the sound was choked, swallowed by the darkness that enveloped me. He had me. When I woke up, the world was a blurry, disorienting mess. His horrible face, those intensely staring eyes, were inches from mine, framed by a sinister smile. I was in a basement, strapped to a cold metal table, surrounded by an array of medical devices that gleamed menacingly in the dim light. Panic clawed at my throat, but no sound escaped. I could only watch, paralyzed, as he approached me with a huge needle, handing it to another man in a hospital gown before darkness consumed me once more. The next time I regained consciousness, I was back in the familiar confines of my apartment, the very spot where I had been attacked. Groaning, confused, I saw a flurry of movement, A bunch of cops. What the hell? I mumbled, the words thick and slurred. For a moment, a fleeting, desperate moment, I thought it had all been a nightmare, a terrifying, vivid dream born from my anxieties. But then, the cold, hard facts of my surroundings, the very real presence of law enforcement, confirmed the truth. It hadn't been a dream. It had all been very real, and things I instinctively knew were much, much worse than I could even imagine. After that horrifying ordeal, I tried to push everything from my mind. The trauma, the fear, the crushing debt, I tried to bury it all under a mountain of work. I took on extra jobs, sold some of my meager possessions, anything to scrape together enough money to pay the bills. It was exhausting, a relentless grind, but I eventually caught up, even managing to save a little for the following month. Life, however, seemed determined to remain complicated. One day, months later, I came home, utterly drained, and slumped in front of my computer, hoping to lose myself in the digital world for a while. As I logged on, a stray thought, an irritating little itch in the back of my mind, brought back the whole crappy experience on the dark web. Almost impulsively, I decided to take a look at my old post on Silk Road. Perhaps the scammer had been caught, or maybe, just maybe, someone had posted a warning about him. And there it was, a new message. Hi, I'm a trusted Silk Road seller. I saw your post about the scammer. I had an encounter with him a few days ago. He also tried to scam me, so I am retaliating. I used one of my alternate accounts to sell him several ounces of MDMA. He already paid, and what I mailed him was a 1/4 pound of sugar and a note with a sad little face and his full name. Is there anything else you'd like this user to suffer from? I stared at the screen, my mind reeling. I had no idea who this person was, this enigmatic figure of vengeance. But their message, the audacity of it, the sheer brazen defiance, sparked something in me. It was like a code of honor among thieves, a self-correcting mechanism in the dark underbelly of the internet. And truth be told, I was fascinated. The Silk Road system, in its own twisted way, was self-correcting. Unfortunately, my creative well of revenge had run dry. I couldn't think of any truly unique or satisfying ways to make the scammer suffer. So I didn't give the seller any suggestions. He responded quickly. No problem. The guy will have enough trouble in the next few weeks. Then came the question that made my heart pound anew. He asked for my Bitcoin wallet address and the amount I had been scammed. I paused, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. A part of me, the greedy, opportunistic part, wanted to lie, to inflate the amount, to see if I could extract something good, some small victory from this whole horrible experience. But another part of me, the part that had just been through hell, knew better. We were talking about the dark web. These people, these digital ghosts, could find out anything. And if I lied, if I tried to pull a fast one, it could cost me dearly. In the end, I told him the truth. It felt crazy, almost suicidal, to be so honest with a stranger on the dark web, especially after everything I'd endured. But to my astonishment, he gave me his approval. I'll be back soon, he wrote. I couldn't believe it. My desperate, furious, bad review was actually going to pay me back. After everything that had happened, the kidnapping, the terror, the debt, I wasn't sure any of it was real. Perhaps I was still hallucinating, still trapped in a nightmare. But the next morning, when I checked my Bitcoin wallet, there it was. All the money was back, every single dollar converted back to its original form, waiting for me. I wish I could adequately explain the feeling that washed over me. It was as if my soul, battered and bruised, had left my body at some point during the ordeal and was now, finally, returning. A profound sense of relief, a deep, resonant calm settled over me. In that moment, I believed in humanity again, even if that humanity manifested in the shadowy corners of the dark web. And I certainly gained a deep, unwavering respect for the strange, often terrifying, but ultimately self-regulating community that thrived there. The ghost in the machine, it seemed, had a code of its own.